Hugo Gonzalez from Spain, listed 6'5", 207, so good, strong frame already. Has been a part of the Real Madrid system since he was 9 years old. I think probably going to be one of the only prospects we cover during this cycle who already has NBA minutes, as he played 5 minutes against the Dallas Mavericks in a preseason game. He pretty much just did cardio in that game. I don't think he attempted a field goal or maybe even touched the ball more than, twice potentially. But he did play in that, not in garbage time. Also has some EuroLeague minutes. So this is a kid who's been on the radar internationally, has played in real high-level competition, right? This is a guy that, it's no surprise to be talking about him as a potential top 10 guy, lottery guy, coming into the year. So I don't know. I felt like there was a lot of negativity about Hugo Gonzalez just reading around based on his FIBA U18 this summer. And to be completely honest, look, I know that Spain didn't have their best showing, and not to say that Yugo was perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I walked away going, man, I think this kid's got a lot of tools that I like, there's a lot of stuff to work on, but I walked away a little bit higher than it felt like what the consensus did about his tournament, I think.
I'm right there with you, Corey. I think it was either last June or July in our Slack chat. I threw in there after last year's U18s. I was like, hey, anyone get eyes on Hugo yet? And I remember at the time, Metcalf was like, yeah, he kind of shot it well, but he's going to be a lot of fun. Since then, he's been a guy that I've been tracking for some time and a guy that I have really enjoyed watching. And Corey, I'm right there with you. I thought this U18, I get it. He didn't shoot the ball well. However, I think he did a lot of fun things on both ends of the floor. I think right now where he's at, and obviously we're going to get into it, but there are a lot of things I like. And he has a lot of base skills and physique stuff and versatility stuff that I'm I think I'm going to like this guy a lot. He's actually already one of my favorite guys in this class. So yes, I'm very excited to talk about. Also, we need to ask Ignacio about this because I was talking to somebody and he was pronouncing it as Hugo, but I thought it was Hugo. I don't know. We'll find out. Okay. But I'm not sure. Yeah.
That's it. Look, there's a lot of really fun international prospects in this class, and it's really hard to figure out the pronunciation to all of their names at this point. I'm watching, trying to find random interviews where the interviewer says their names, trying to listen to how the announcers say their names. And it's so just no one's going to say things the same way. Very helpful. Let's start with the shooting as we often do. So the numbers aren't great historically, percentage wise, but I buy him as a shooter. I like his form. He's got a pretty balanced base, quick, high release, clean follow through a lot of the times, takes a lot of tough shots off the bounce. But I'm in on the long term, man. I think that he's got a lot of versatility. He's comfortable. He's not afraid. He was relegated, with the main Real Madrid club to a lot of spot up shooting. But he showed a lot more of that versatility with the youth clubs. Not afraid to take tough shots. It's not perfect, but again, he's taking movement shots. I feel like he stays balanced, mid-air. Sometimes it's a little it's often one motiony, and sometimes that can make things hard because it allows guys, I think, to get pretty good contests, but he's still able to get shots off. I think he's pretty creative in getting those shots off. I don't know. I buy it. I get the numbers haven't been great historically, and that's definitely something you have to take into consideration because some guys, it could look good, they just don't have good touch. And that could be the case with him. But I am willing to buy into projecting him as a guy who's at least going to be an average shooter. It's not, even if it's not a strength, I don't think it's going to be a weakness. And I think there's an important distinction between not a good shooter and this won't be a weakness.
Yep. Corey, I wrote in my notes, I have no problem with the jumper because I like how it looks. And I think he's got pretty good range on it as well. It just has to go in more. And he's a young kid, and I think he's got great physical tools. So I think he's going to figure it out because I like how it looks. I get the numbers right for U18 for Spain this year. In the tournament, he shot 21.3%, 10 for 47. Cool. I get it. This past season for Real Madrid U18, the team that he played with Igor on, he shot 24%. He was 13 to 54. I'm right. I get it. The numbers are what they are, Corey. But
Mhm.
this is one of the rare cases where you watch a kid shoot and you watch the context that he's in and you watch the athletic ability and even like, just the different skills around what he can do, it makes you optimistic that he's going to figure it out. And he plays really hard as well. So it just makes you think like, oh, this kid, he's got good athletic ability. He plays really hard and he's not afraid to take the shots. You kind of end up betting on a kid like that. You feel like, oh, he's going to figure it out. And it's a little bit different. Like I remember a couple years back when the Knicks took RJ Barrett, right? And I remember Bill Simmons and Ryan Russillo, they talked about art. They were obsessed with RJ for years, weirdly, right? They could never really figure him out. And they would always, and something Bill would always say would be like, oh, the thing with RJ is like, I think he really cares about winning. I think he tries hard. I think he's going to, lock himself in the gym and figure it out. The one thing I'll say to RJ is that he's never really figured out the outside shooting, right? He hasn't become a knockdown shooter. He's
Consistently.
improved a little, huh?
Consistently.
Consistently. Correct,
Yeah.
correct. But the
On and
thing
off.
with yes, the thing with Hugo though that I believe in though is that yeah, he cares, he tries really hard, but also like I like the athletic ability with him and the tools, and I feel like it's gonna offer up different opportunities for him. So I don't know. I'm with you. I'm right there with you, Corey. I like how it looks. I believe in it, and I think it's just gonna take some time.
Yeah. Now RJ is a
Yeah,
pretty interesting player comp. Like they don't
yeah.
look like they play the same way. Maybe it's because RJ's a lefty, but RJ's a little more stiff in his movements. It
Yes.
feels like he's like
Very
less
upright.
flexible, you know. But RJ was also a kid at these levels who like was really aggressive getting downhill, and that led to a lot of
Playmaking.
good stuff for him. And RJ's still a really good player, and he showed
Yes.
like a lot of positive flashes, taking on like I think a role that fits his game more with Toronto than it did in New York. But yeah, I'm kind of buying the shot. Like I like how he uses like floaters out to the free throw line. Like he's comfortable. He's just comfortable shooting in a lot of different situations. But like obviously he's a really great athlete. And he's aggressive downhill and getting to the rim. He pressures the rim a ton. He was 69% overall, 60.5% in the half court in the FIBA U18s. Really quick first step. I think he's got really slick footwork in tight spaces, mixes up using like Euro steps and hop steps. He finishes off both feet to throw off, the rim protector, the timing of the rim protector. I think that like his strength actually allows him to finish through contact and embrace it, get to the free throw line. He can play above the rim. He's got a little bit of bounce. He's awesome in the open floor. He can cut. He's got good hands catching the ball on those cuts. I think he's going to be effective, like coming off a lot of zoom actions at the NBA level, where it allows him to take some momentum downhill. When he's operating with the ball in his hand, mostly out of ball screens, not a lot of like ISO stuff, which personally I like. Like there's a little bit of ISO, but I'd rather the screening option there. Really good with like the sharp left to right crossover. To free up space. He's got a snatchback that he likes to get to. Really good at splitting double teams, which I think is important. He's got like good, like hard plan, change direction into quick bursts. Like there's a lot to like with him as like a downhill shot creator in different scenarios. So it's really important that as for somebody who has obvious areas of his game that he needs to improve upon. I think it's important for a guy like him to come in with this ability to finish at the rim, because I think it's easier to develop into a better shooter than it is to kind of have some of the stuff that he already has.
Corey, I love the list you went through. I agree with all of it. One of the main things that I wrote about, in my notes about him was I just love his awareness on offense. It just feels like he always knows where to be, but also knows where his teammates are supposed to be. There are a lot of really good possessions where you see him really like directing his teammates, getting them set up, telling them where to be, and then kind of like getting into the flow of the set or whatever. I really like his handle for the position that he's going to be playing. He can get shifty too, like you mentioned, with the stuff that he's got. An absolute blur weapon in transition, a guy that loves to run out and can, he can grab and go and create as well too. I just really like his athleticism a lot. I like his size. I like his length. He feels like he's one of these guys, Corey, where even at his absolute worst, I can't imagine him just sitting in a corner. Like he's going to be a guy that's going to figure out how to impact the game at all times, even if that means that he doesn't have the ball in his hands a ton. I just love that about him. As you mentioned, the cutting with him, really love that part. Was a lot of fun to watch. I thought he passed the ball pretty well too. I thought he had a lot of nice looks. Even sometimes he'd be running ball screens and make a little pocket pass here or there. I just like the connectivity with him too.
His passing is interesting. It's an interesting
Yeah.
conversation because all the numbers say he's like a below average passer. And this is an important, it's important, even, so he had 18 assists to 25 turnovers at the U18s. So it's like negative assist turnover ratio, right? I think he's a good passer, a creative passer, capable of making high level reads, a lot of like really fun high level reads to the weak side of the floor when he collapses the defense off his drives because he's going to pressure the rim and guys are going to have to rotate. I don't know about his decision making always. And I think sometimes where he's at right now, he tries to fit balls into spaces, into windows that aren't there.
Sure.
I think that's something that he could get better at over time. That's the fun part about doing these really early dives. We're looking at these kids at such a young age and such an early part of their development. So I like the flashes, but it doesn't guarantee that his decision making is going to get there. It doesn't. Now he's a score first guy, and part of his appeal is that he could be kind of like a play finisher guy at those higher levels, right? And like he's not going to be relied upon, I don't think, to make a ton of plays for his teammates. If he does, like I don't know, like if he gets to a level of where he is relied upon in that role, like I don't know, like Zach LaVine or something, then this becomes much more important, right? But that's a high bar to set. Think about whatever you want to think about with Zach LaVine. That guy's making a ton of money because NBA teams are willing to give him that much money. If Gonzalez got to that point, then you could start picking apart that part of his game. I don't think it's going to be the main focus of his game. Obviously, you want him to at least be capable of making better decisions with the ball, but the flashes are there. And I think at this point in the cycle, we could at least be optimistic and try to be optimistic about some of the flashes with these guys.
No, I think that's all fair, Corey. I think for me, I liked it. I really felt like some of the passing, I'm not going to use the word special because it's not, but I thought it was really good. And there were some nice touch passes he had, some quick decisions, Corey, the 0.5 basketball stuff that you love. Like, I feel like this is a kid that he's kind of like a wild stallion. There's some sharpening that needs to happen, but just the overall floor with his skill set and his brain, I think he's a really smart basketball player. So if he can just tighten things up a little bit, his final end product, I think, is going to be an extremely enticing NBA wing. And some of the stuff with him that's so interesting is on the other side of the floor as well, Corey. And he's got, I really like his size. I really like a lot of the stuff that he did. I know you're going to get into it, but I just wanted to give a couple of stats.
No, start it off because I like his defense, man.
Dude, he led his team. He led his team in total rebounds, offensive rebounds, defensive rebounds, steals, and blocks. Like he had an extremely productive U18 tournament on a Spain team that I thought his team was kind of weird too. Like I thought a lot of the guys around him really struggled, but also they looked crazy young. Like some of his teammates looked like they were 14 years old, So I think the situation that he played in was tough, but I think he played his ass off. Defensively, he had 14 blocks the whole tournament. 18 steals, right? 48 total rebounds.
He averaged
As I mentioned,
4.6 stocks a game.
it just insane production.
And
I thought
3.6 stocks a game at the next gen tournament. So like, it's not like, this is something it's a pattern. Like, he's good
right.
at creating defensive events.
Right. And you can see it, like the way that he plays. Of course, now I won't give him only praise here, because there were times that I thought he gambled a little bit too much. But something that I mentioned before with Kasparis was that sometimes that was like just the overall energy that the Spain team decided to play with. They were going to run out and try to get into passing lanes and make something of these situations. But overall with him, we mentioned it before, the athleticism is great with him. The size is great with him. The length is great with him. And I think he's got really good instincts. And so just the fact that, he far and away led his team in blocks, steals, in stocks, I thought was really interesting and speaks to that defensive playmaking with him. But also, if we get beyond the numbers, I just really like the instincts and just the overall tools that he has. And so, and also, I thought he had good hands too. So good anticipation in the passing lanes. So,
yeah, no, active hands.
Yes,
active
a
hands.
lot to like. And I think, Corey, if we look at him holistically, right? Yes, we don't love the shooting numbers right now, of course. Some of the decision making you mentioned, there's room to grow. But then if you bring in the defensive side of it as well, and then you kind of put it all together, then we're kind of looking at like an all action, really versatile wing player that might have all the tools you're looking for as a modern NBA wing. And if he can get his shooting to 35, 37%, then we're talking about a guy that will make a shit ton of money in the NBA one day. So that's where I'm at with him. I really enjoyed a lot of the defensive stuff.
Yeah, the two-way stuff's really fun, and it's why, like, projecting him forward again, that shot comes around. Like, you could see this guy playing, even if it doesn't necessarily come around. I still think he offers so much, but like, I could see him playing in high leverage playoff games down the line, and not having to be benched necessarily. But like, look, there's things defensively he definitely has to work on. You mentioned some of the gambles. I thought he bid on pump fakes a lot because, again, he's trying to like sometimes hunt maybe a block or two. His screen navigation, I thought, on and off the ball needed work. I thought, like, he was really good positionally off the ball. Like, he knows when to get to a spot early, and that's part of the reason why he can generate blocks. If he's going to be the low man, like, he's going to get to that spot early so he can time his leap to come over. He's going to split the weak side so he can X out to the right guy, right, when the ball skips. Like, he knows where to be in these situations, and part of that IQ leads to some of this too, even though sometimes, yeah, maybe he's gambling. Like, part of it is also, I think, his feel on that end, and his instincts. So, but yeah, I think he struggled chasing shooters around, and this is a guy, like, I think he needs to like work on which angles to take, like whether he's going to like cut under, go over, all of that, stay skinny in those situations. But there's so much to like with his motor, with his two-way capability, that it's easy to see him playing. I don't think he's going to be a guy who is like a star level player, but like, I think that he's going to be a guy who complements star level players, and he'll star in his role, and he'll have like that extra gear, that extra oomph. Like, I could see him in like, the Western Conference Finals coming in for like a gigantic tip dunk off an offensive rebound because his motor just put him in the right spot type. You know what I mean? Like, I could see that with him. So there's a lot for him to work on. But he's got a lot of tools that are really enticing, I think.
Yeah. I mean,
and again, most people thought he had a bad tournament. Like, so, what does it look like if he does? And I think that's part of it. Part of is that he's one of the international prospects that came in with the most hype. So the more expectations that you have for somebody, the higher that bar is to reach them in people's eyes. But like, I think looking at it objectively, I thought he showed a lot of really, really impressive skills.
Yeah, no, my ultimate like early preseason evaluation with him is I just love the versatility. He has like an all around game that's easy to love. You can see, like, I don't know, maybe people, I don't know who the people are, but the people that didn't like his tournament, like, I feel like if you ask coaches, they might say something different. I feel like coaches might be like, "Oh, are you sure?" Because like he was really productive on both ends of the floor, So I personally just look at him, and this is not I'm not comparing him to him, but like maybe he's that style of player, like a Josh Hart style of player one day, where it's like, yeah, maybe, Josh Hart's never become like a knockdown shooter, but he impacts the game in so many different ways that you kind of just can't keep him off the floor. And maybe Hugo becomes that type of player, right? Maybe I'm hoping the shooting gets there. And if it does, then we're talking about a different type of ceiling. But at his floor, maybe he's that type of player where he impacts the game so much through all the other things he does that it's just hard to keep him off. So I like him a lot, Corey. I see a lot of potential with him. I have him pretty high up on my board, even with the heart. And Corey, I genuinely don't like guys that can't shoot the ball, but my biggest thing with him is I think he's going to figure it out. So I like him a lot.